Welcome to the Critical Cinema Club. I'm Colm.
I'm Sean.
Today we're going to choose what we believe is the best film from each decade, starting from the 1930s.
Yeah.
So we'll go from the 1930s all the way up to, well, we're halfway through this decade. So
I've got one for this decade.
I've got one for this decade as well. So I think we'll do this decade as well. So we'll start with the 1930s.
So interestingly, this is obviously because we don't communicate before we make these videos.
No.
I've gone for my favourite of the decade. Have
Right.
you gone for what you think's the best, objectively, or your favourite?
I've gone for what I think is, in my opinion, the best.
Okay.
So not necessarily my favourite, because my favourite wouldn't necessarily be that good a film. Like for the 90s, I could have easily picked The Rocketeer, but The Rocketeer isn't like the best film of the 90s. So
I'm sure it's the best film that year.
well, it's underrated. Definitely underrated. Yeah. But I'm just going for what I think is the best film. But it's not going to be a film that I don't like.
Well, we're going to have some slightly different things here then, because I have just gone for films that I like.
Yes.
So
that's fine.
One's subjective, one's objective.
Well, what I've done is I've actually listed a couple of films. Well, for the 1940s, I've only listed 2 films. But for the 1980s, I've probably got about 15 films listed down as... So the way I did this is I listed all the films out, and then I looked at them and I thought, what would I prefer? What would be my favourite out of these films? And then I chose my definitive out of that list.
Yeah, I've got some honourable mentions.
Yes, I've got quite a lot of honourable mentions. So, right, so we're starting from the night. Are we going to 1930s?
Yeah, let's do it. I chose King Kong.
Okay.
Because for its time, if you go back and watch that footage now, and to us it looks, quite old and maybe quite funny, but then it was groundbreaking in terms of mixing stop motion with real life actors.
Was it Harryhausen that did the stop motion?
I can't remember. But just to remind myself, I watched a clip of it this morning. There's a bit of the... what they call King Kong, got his name of the movie.
The big giant ape.
The big monkey guy. He's on the building and he grabs the actress. She says, "Oh no!" And then it shows you a stop motion bit, and they've just got this like flailing figure in his hand.
Yeah.
But at the time, I'm sure it was amazing. But that was probably the first blockbuster type movie.
Yeah, most certainly.
I mean,
that's a great shout.
Yeah, I mean, to see something like that from 90 years ago it was revolutionary at the time.
It's incredible, really, isn't it? And I never would have thought of that. Like stop motion animation in films at that time would have been completely mind blowing for audiences in those days. Because I mean, how long had movies really been on the big screen? They would have been in black and white and stuff.
Yeah, and it voiced as well with sound. So an amazing effort for its time, and I don't want to say it holds up, because obviously you and me could probably do something like that here now. But
subjectively.
But in terms of what was available in the 1930s, and I think you could probably sit and watch it and enjoy it now. So for me, that's easily probably, I would say, my favourite, and probably I would even say objectively maybe the best movie of the 30s, maybe one of the most important, because obviously it opened those doors to, do you get The Matrix and things like that without King Kong? Who knows? I mean, there'd have been another film along the way, I'm sure. But
you wouldn't have got 1,000 remakes of it.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah. For 1930s, I was going to go with Wizard of Oz.
It'd be interesting, because I imagine some of the commenters might point to The Wizard of Oz being probably the most important film of the 30s, the way it transitioned into colour, part through the film and the scale of it and everything. Personally, because of the type of movies that we enjoy, I think King Kong would probably be more influential.
Yes.
Personally.
Right, so let's jump into the next decade, into the 1940s. What are you going to hit me with?
Right, I love this film a lot. Rope.
Rope?
So it's an Alfred Hitchcock film.
Alfred Hitchcock?
Yeah, Alfred Hitchcock.
Cock.
Yeah, I emphasised that as I looked at him, because cock. So it's almost like it could be a play, really. It's all set in one room, and there's a few parts of the film where you can tell they stopped the take. But it could have maybe been done in one take. It would have been a bit of an ask. But essentially, these two guys hold a party. And they've got a box in the middle of the room at this party. And inside the box is their best friend who they've murdered. And they've strangled him with this rope. And they invite all his friends and family and their college professor who they're trying to impress. And everyone's asking, where is he? And he'll be along soon. You never know where he'll be. And these two lads think they're being really clever. And James Stewart is the college professor.
He's been in a few Hitchcock films, hasn't he? Yeah, Vertigo as well was in that. And
It's a Wonderful Life and thing. Yeah. So we had a bit of a run of James Stewart films last year. Crack Rope Out, because I think it's just a fantastic
Crack
film.
the Rope Out.
Crack the Rope Out. And it's just, you know what, I just really like it. It's just so simple. And it's just really well done, because even though it's in one room, and on my high definition TV, I can see that it's just paintings outside of New York where it's supposed to be. But they dim the lights and they make it look like evenings coming on during the film. And it's just really well made and just simple, but excellent in its execution. And I would say, for me personally, I've not enjoyed any other film from the 40s more than that.
That's a great shout. Yeah, again, it's not one that I would have thought of.
I highly recommend watching it. Yeah, I really, really enjoy it.
So I've gone for Citizen Kane. Just because, again, of its cultural impact. You know, it's Orson Welles, probably one of the greatest film directors of all time. One of the reasons why I thought of this was because I watched the Simpsons episode when Mr. Burns loses Bobo the bear.
Yeah.
And it's very much the Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Burns is based on Charles Foster Kane. That's it. But the film's got probably one of the biggest plot holes of any film, because his final words before he died, who was in the room to hear him say his final words?
We've got to be careful with plot holes on this channel, mate. You know what? Comments. Maybe it was Stigmata.
It might have been. Maybe someone went back in time and forgot to write that part in.
Yeah. I read somewhere once that The Simpsons tried to get a Citizen Kane reference into every episode somewhere. I don't know how true that is.
Doesn't surprise me. There are quite a lot of them. That story of Charles Foster Kane as a young man and his rise to power and his decline of like the goodness within him. It's a little bit like Walter White in Breaking Bad. It's the same kind of arc. It's that spiral. And I always find that when you've got that anti the anti arc, if you will, it's not the hero's journey, it's the villain's journey. The villain's journey. I always find that a lot more engaging than the hero's journey.
I always find villains more interesting than heroes anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I've gone for Citizen Kane in the 1940s, 1950s.
Very similar vein to the 1940s, because you like what you like, don't you?
Yeah.
Another Alfred Hitchcock movie with James Stewart in Rear Window.
Yes, that's a great film.
Yeah.
Yes, another one with James Stewart.
Yeah. It's a similar formula. It could have been you can see how that would be a stage play. I wish someone would do it like that. But it's the whole thing's in this guy's room watching out the window.
It was also in that episode of Simpsons.
Yeah.
Crazy kid's watching me again.
Oh no! That sinister-looking kid is coming to kill me. Help!
They like their old movies on Simpsons, don't they? I think that is a film that you could watch today, maybe along with Rope, and if you didn't know what was going to happen, you would be on the edge of your seat. It's really well made. And there's a reason why Hitchcock's a legend. It's just so well done.
And James Stewart, he plays the bumbling...
Plays that role well, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's like a smart guy, but he's just bumbling somehow as well at the same time.
Yeah, it's a really engaging film. I've seen it a few times. Again, when I was going through this list and was listing films down from different decades, so just going back into 1940s, another one that I did list in honourable mentions was A Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
So I think that was 1941. And James Stewart in that film, that's probably his definitive role.
It's got to be his definitive role.
Yeah.
But I've just realised, as we're talking about Rear Window, The Bone Collector, do you ever see that is it Denzel Washington?
Yeah.
That's a bit like Rear Window, isn't it? Because he's in the hospital. He can't move. He's paralysed, isn't he? And he sends... Is it Angelina Jolie?
She's... Yeah.
He sends her off. Like in Rear Window, he sends that woman off into the flats.
Yeah.
But at the end, the guy comes into the room to get him. I don't know if I'm butchering it. It's been a long time since The Bone Collector, but they seem to be quite similar.
If we're wrong, put a message in the comments that we're wrong.
I'm going to Google this straight after, and if we're wrong, we'll just have to cut it out.
Yeah. Right, so my pick for the 1950s, if you're right for me to jump in here.
Yeah, I'm ready for you.
The War of the Worlds.
Do you know what? That was one of my honourable mentions.
Was it?
Yeah. So I've got a little list here, and I've got my main things written big, but next to it I've scribbled on, and I've put WOTW next to Rear Window. So again, very much like King Kong, it's the formula.
Yes.
For the modern sort of, I mean, the way it's replicated in the modern War of the Worlds, it works so well, and it's taken from that, hasn't it? And all the Independence Day and anything like that all comes back to the War of the Worlds, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in the 1950s was kind of the time of the B movie and the sci-fi B movie, the alien invasions. So another film that I've got on my honourable mentions, and put my laptop on the floor because my charger doesn't reach to my knees, was The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Oh, yeah.
Robert Wise, who directed Star Trek The Motion Picture, because on this channel we can't go 5 minutes without discussing Star Trek. Yeah, those kind of like B-movie sci-fi films were a tenner penny during like the 1940s, 1950s, and a lot of them had like the allegory of the Second World War. And
we just started some space exploration, haven't we? As well? And talking about going to the moon, weren't they, at that time?
Yeah,
and it seemed like anything was
unknown. Possible. Yeah, absolutely. And but I watched the War of the Worlds quite recently, and the visual effects for its time are absolutely amazing. Like those, I know there weren't. Technically speaking, there weren't tripods, but there's when you first see like the flying saucers coming out of the ground, there are 3 legs and it gets mentioned like an offhand comment that it's like a force field carrying them, and then you don't see it again for the rest of the film because it was too expensive a special effect to have to put in. So that's how they got around how there weren't tripods, but they couldn't do the physical walking tripods because it was too difficult for them to do.
But I think that's something they picked up in the Tom Cruise version, wasn't it? I feel like they were tripods, if I remember.
They were tripods, yeah. They were a bit more closer to the book, and I've read the book a couple of times, and I'm a massive fan of the Jeff Wayne musical War of the Worlds as well. And I'd have loved to have seen a film adaptation of the musical version with all of the music in, but. The War of the Worlds is obviously a big inspiration for, like you said, Independence Day and films like that, the alien invasion films. And H.G. Wells, as an author, I don't think there was many better than him at writing science fiction novels.
Yeah, like The Time Machine as well. I mean, has there been a better time travel story than that since?
Well, we'll come on to that in a bit.
Oh, will we?
So that's the 1950s. I think got some honourable mentions. Rebel Without a Cause.
Yeah.
Yeah, but James Dean.
Yeah, that really, I think, defined a generation, really, didn't it? Then that breakthrough culture, that anti-authority culture that was coming out at that time. I think that really encapsulated what was like really a movement at that time.
Yeah, it's when teenagers really started to become like the...
Yeah, they started listening to Elvis and stuff like that. And to them at that time, that was a rebellion.
Yeah.
They were very tightly buttoned down up until that point. So James Dean doing a film like that, it was groundbreaking.
But a couple of other ones to... Well, one other honourable mention is Forbidden Planet.
Yeah. They've even named a chain of shops over here after Forbidden Planet. I've been in it today.
What's it called?
Forbidden Planet.
Oh, yeah. 1960s. What have you got from the 1960s, Sean?
Probably not the definitive, but my personal favourite film from the 1960s is Alfie.
Alfie, with
Michael Caine.
Michael Caine.
Obviously, we're British, love London, love that kind of film as well. I always like films where they're talking to the camera and like...
Well, you love London. I hate London.
Oh dear, I like London a lot.
I hate London.
But I like films like that, a bit like High Fidelity. Do you ever see High Fidelity? Where you're sort of in the film with the main character and they're trying to talk through the problems with you. That's always appealed to me, that type of film.
A bit like Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Alfie's, I'm sure there would have been earlier than that, but that's the earliest that I know of that did that type of thing. And I like Michael Caine a lot.
Yeah, he's probably one of the best actors.
He's not a character you're meant to be rooting for, is he? But he's got a certain charm about him that makes the film work. Without
he's good
his charm,
at that type of character, though, isn't he?
Yes.
That's a character he played well.
It was.
Kind of like an anti-hero as such.
Yeah, and I don't know if that film works without him. Because if he's just an arsehole, there's no film there. But because you sort of like him, even though he's like the way he is.
If you recast him with Jude Law...
I won't watch it. I haven't watched it. Because I could just imagine that coming off quite smug prick, you know?
Yeah.
But maybe I've just not, because I've not given it a chance, I could be wrong. I've got some honourable mentions as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, you go for it.
Night of the Living Dead.
Yes.
Again, you can see a theme emerging here, which is picking films that have become like a staple of a certain genre. So Night of the Living Dead, obviously Dawn of the Dead. And the whole, Walking Dead and everything. None of those things. I love zombie things. Resident Evil. Do any of those things happen without this film? I actually don't know.
28 Years Later is coming out this year, and 28 Days Later is one of my favourite films.
But you can draw all those back to Night of the Living Dead, and I'd be interested to see a parallel universe where that film's not made, to see what the landscape of Hollywood's like.
Yeah.
And how can you mention the 1960s without 2001: A Space Odyssey?
Yeah, that's one of my honourable mentions as well. Again, it's groundbreaking in terms of its special effects. Stanley Kubrick being one of the greatest directors of all time.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of honourable mentions where his films kind of come into play a little bit later on, but my selection for the 1960s, and you probably would have guessed this, surprise, surprise, the good, the bad and the ugly.
I absolutely knew it. Yeah, I knew you would. I knew you would. And it's a great choice as well, to be fair.
I just think The Good, the Bad and the Ugly is, for me, it's one of the greatest films ever made. It's such an inspiration for a lot of directors that came later. Obviously, Quentin Tarantino was.
Yeah,
if you look at so many films from different genres, they kind of directly or indirectly pay homage to that style. A lot of which is, kind of fits into the parody as well. And again, if you don't have The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, do a lot of Western films from the 70s, 80s and into the 90s and even today.
Oh, yeah.
Did they get made the way that they did?
No, I don't think they do. The cultural impact it had on all of Hollywood movies. The Western was already a very popular genre, but I would argue that took it into the next stratosphere.
Yeah, well, the Western was kind of on its way out towards the end of the 1950s because it kind of exploded onto TV screens. So in film, the Western was almost like a dead genre. And then the spaghetti Western came along and breathed new life into it. You also get the fact that without these three films, you don't get Clint Eastwood as a huge star who went on to do a lot of great films, even directing a lot of great films. And
yeah, absolutely.
1970s. What have you got for me, Shawnee D?
My favourite film of the 1970s is Get Carter. Again, Michael Caine.
It's my honourable mentions.
It is one of my favourite films.
Yeah, and you've obviously been to...
I've been to Newcastle and seen... Because I did a little short where I went to some of the locations and things. Really simple in nature. And I like...
Big butts and you can't lie?
I do like big butts and I can't lie. I just like seeing footage of old England as well, because you go up there now and you see Newcastle and some of these places that were they're not even there anymore. They've been knocked down. So it's got a bit more character in films like that. These cobbled old terrace streets and things. They've all gone. I mean, one of them, I watched a video about what's it look like now, and one of them is just the Metro Centre. It's just there's just nothing there anymore. So. It's a great story. Michael Caine is just brilliant in that kind of role. When I thought of the 70s, there was no other choice for me. It was Get Carter. Yeah,
I thought you might have selected that. And it's on my honourable mentions, like I said. But for the 1970s, some people are going to think, we're going to go for Star Wars because we've got Star Wars things in our collections. But for me, I've gone for Jaws.
Very good shout.
The Birth of the Blockbuster, the Summer Blockbuster. It's a film that I've reviewed. I absolutely love it. I've read the book. The book is so different to the film. I prefer the film over the book, just because of how streamlined the story is. It's not just a creature feature. There's more going on behind the that surface layer of they have to get rid of this killer shark. But it's about capitalism and how the mayor is so blinded by loss of revenue by closing down the beaches. He's more bothered about earning money than he is about people's lives.
Which is an example people used during the pandemic as well. I often saw that being referenced, the mayor at the beach.
Yeah,
We're talking about keeping shops and things open. But yeah, another extremely important film and amazing. It still holds up today. And I think that, all these films, I like horror movies and things, and none of them really scare me, but Jaws frightened me to death. And to this day, I'm still a bit scared of going into the sea and things like that.
I hate jellyfish, and they're the reason why I don't like swimming in the sea. But
it's got a name. It's called thalassophobia. Thalassophobia is a fear of large bodies of water, and I think I do have that because of Jaws. And other films like that, because there is something about the unknown, but also as human beings, we're completely out of our element. I mean, would you rather take on a shark when you're in the water or a lion when you're on the land?
It's not really a choice that I would like to be presented with, if I'm being honest.
I mean, you've got 0% chance. I mean, you've only got 1% chance with a lion, I think, haven't you? But with a shark, you're dead.
The film itself, you don't really see the shark until the final act.
But that's a happy accident, isn't it?
Well, it was an accident, but it worked well.
Yeah. But it's funny how
in their favour.
Things like Star Wars, there's another one that says happy accident. So many things went wrong with it. That they had to really use their initiative to get that film out of the bag, and it worked out for the better. And I think Jaws is the same, because you don't see Bruce for a long time because the actual shark itself didn't work, and that works in its favour. I mean, if you had seen the shark early doors, would it have been as good a film? I don't know.
I don't think it would have. The fact that Jaws was a happy accident and it worked so well, and it kind of birthed its own kind of horror. Yeah. And I know that it had been done before with The Thing from Outer Space and things like that, where you didn't really see the monster due to limitations of special effects. And the fear of the unknown is what really makes things scary, and that's you can see the inspiration of Jaws in something like Alien.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. So
very similar setup. It's like Jaws in space.
Jaws is one of those films where they've that formula is so tired now, but back then it was so fresh. Yeah. But it didn't even work within its own franchise. So Jaws 2 and onward, it didn't really work there. But it's one of those ones that you have to change it up drastically. That's why it worked with Alien. Yeah. If you was to redo Alien now, which they have done, with Alien sequels, it doesn't quite work as well.
And there's only so many times you can tell that story. I think Jaws is a great one and done.
It's unique.
And once the shark's dead, it's over. It's not like Star Wars or Star Trek where you can just go off into other areas.
You can expand, can't you?
You can't expand a story like that. They've tried, but it's...
Yeah, it's not like with Jaws, you can... There's like a backstory to it, and there's a prequel to how the shark...
Like Jaws, the revenge and stuff like that. The sharks don't care if another shark's been killed.
I actually thought the 1970s was one of the hardest decades to choose. Let's see how many honourable mentions you've got that are the same as mine. So obviously there's Star Wars.
The first two Godfather films.
Yeah, I've got those.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, I've got that as well.
Yeah. And I had a really tough time between the three of them. Ultimately, Get Carter is one of my favourite films anyway, so it edged out in front. But the three of them are on a par for me personally.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a longer list. Dirty Harry, Taxi Driver, Mean Streets, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Apocalypse Now, French Connection, The Deer Hunter, Close Encounters, Rocky, which is one of my favourite films, Enter the Dragon, I love it, Halloween, Serpico, and Superman the movie.
I mean, I'm going to say I don't know that we can pick a definitive film for the 70s, because I think once you get to the 70s, it starts blossoming out and all these genres start taking flight.
Yes.
How do you objectively say Superman's a better film than The Godfather or vice versa? Because they're so different.
Written by the same guy.
Really?
Mario Puzo, he wrote the story for Superman.
Okay, well. I've accidentally stumbled on some amazing trivia.
Yeah, there you go.
So I didn't know that, no. But yeah, it's very, very, very difficult to really pin it down to one film.
Yeah.
But those are my choices for my personal picks from the 70s.
Jaws is my favourite film from the 70s.